at the zoo. One day, Arby went to the zoo to see the animals. At the entrance, she met one guard. Upon entering, she heard a loud roar. She turned around to see two lions in the cage. Moving forward, she came across three crocodiles who were sunbathing. Not far from there were four elephants taking a mud bath. They were a family with Mommy, Daddy, and two cute baby elephants. As Arby explored more, she ran into a big cage with trees. Jumping on the trees were 5 monkeys. Arby was hungry and sat down to eat in the zoo cafeteria. Opposite to the cafeteria were 6 peacocks. A little further, she ran into a pond. Swimming in the pond were 7 ducks. But that wasn't all. On the other side of the pond were 8 turtles. Near the zoo's exit was a dense area with many trees. Perched on those trees were 9 parrots. Just before leaving the zoo, Arby saw 10 owls sitting on a single tree. She had never seen so many owls together. Amazed with the sight, she came back from the zoo and repeated the number of each animal she had seen.
Baby, don't cry. Screeching, screaming, the baby cries. In a cradle on the floor, the baby lies. Mommy sings him nice lullabies, but the baby still has tears in his eyes. Hearing the cry, Daddy wakes up and opens the door. Smiling, he says, "Hey, little champ, your cry is louder than my snore." Mommy gets him a cute soft toy, hands him a teddy bear to enjoy. But the baby doesn't cease to cry, be it Daddy, be it Teddy, or a nice lullaby. Then Mommy takes a look at baby's nappy and says, "It's Wee Wee, now I know how to make you happy. Let's change your nappy. Oh, don't be shy. Dry and soft, the new nappy won't make you cry." Once Mommy is done with the chore, baby smiles, sleeps, and cries no more. The Ant and the Grasshopper. One summer's day, a lazy grasshopper was chirping, singing, and enjoying the sun. The grasshopper saw an ant working very hard to gather food. The grasshopper called out to the ant,
"Stop your silly work and have fun with me."
"No," replied the ant. "I am gathering food for winter. I suggest you do the same." But the grasshopper simply ignored the ant. The grasshopper spent the rest of the sunny days having fun. When winter finally began, the grasshopper couldn't find anything to eat. He searched for food everywhere, but everything was buried under the snow. he remembered the hard-working ant. He went to her house and cried,
I am hungry. I cannot find anything to eat.
The ant felt pity on him. The ant called the grasshopper inside and gave him food. The grasshopper ate happily and promised the ant that he would never sit idle in the days before winter. Moral of the story? Be responsible and prepare for days of necessity. The Hare and the Tortoise. Once upon a time, a tortoise was walking on the road. A hare saw him and started laughing loudly. Ha ha ha, look at you! You are so slow! The tortoise got angry and challenged the hare to a race. The hare immediately agreed, saying, Why not? I'm faster than you. I can beat you anytime. On the day of the race, the hare and the tortoise arrived at the starting line. The tiger waved the flag to signal the beginning of the race. The hare ran very fast, while the tortoise slowly followed behind. The hare was quite ahead of the tortoise in no time at all. He saw that the tortoise was walking slowly far behind him. The hare was so sure about winning the race that he decided to take a little nap under the tree. While the hare was dreaming, the tortoise continued walking slowly and went ahead of the hare. The hare woke up from his nap and saw the tortoise reaching the finish line. He started running, but it was too late. He couldn't reach there before the tortoise. The tortoise won the race. The hare started crying because he had lost the race to the slow tortoise. Moral of the story? Slow and steady wins the race.
Once upon a time, next to a big forest, lived a little girl with her mum and dad. Each time the little girl went into the forest, she wore a red hood. Everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mum had baked a cake. The cake was a present for Red Riding Hood's grandmother. Grandmother lived on the other side of the forest. Red Riding Hood's mum asked her to take the cake to Grandma. Mum told Red Riding Hood to keep on the pathway and not stop anywhere. She told her not to talk to strangers. Mum and Red Riding Hood waved goodbye to each other. Little Red Riding Hood went into the forest. She had a basket on her arm with the cake inside. A big bad wolf was watching her. He was very hungry. Little Red Riding Hood did not see him. He came beside Red Riding Hood. The wolf tried to sound friendly. He asked Red Riding Hood where she was going. She told him she was going to see her grandmother on the other side of the forest. The big bad wolf told Red Riding Hood that she should pick some flowers for Grandma. As Red Riding Hood was picking the flowers, the wolf ran off. He wanted to get to Grandmother's house before Red Riding Hood. wolf arrived at Grandmother's house. He knocked on the door. Grandmother asked who it was. The wolf changed his voice and said it was Red Riding Hood. Grandmother said the door was open. The big bad wolf let himself in. Grandmother saw him and began to scream. Before she could do anything, the big bad wolf swallowed Grandmother up. The big bad wolf was not satisfied. He wanted to eat Red Riding Hood as well. The big bad wolf dressed himself in Grandmother's clothes. He climbed into her bed. He waited for Red Riding Hood to arrive. Red Riding Hood came to Grandmother's house. She knocked on the door and asked if she could come in. The big bad wolf changed his voice. He sounded like her grandmother. He told her to come in. Red Riding Hood said what a deep voice her grandmother had. The wolf said it was better to greet her with. Red Riding Hood moved closer to her grandmother. She said what big eyes she had. The wolf said they were better to see her with. Red Riding Hood said what big ears Grandmother had. The wolf said they were better to hear her with. The wolf told her to move closer. Red Riding Hood said what big teeth she had. The wolf told her they were better to eat her with. The wolf jumped out of the bed. Red Riding Hood screamed. Red Riding Hood ran from the house. The big bad wolf chased her. She saw a woodcutter. Red Riding Hood told him that the wolf had eaten her grandmother. The brave woodcutter picked the big bad wolf up. He shook him and the grandmother came out. She was shaken but safe and okay. The woodcutter, grandmother and Red Riding Hood all watched the wolf run away. They were happy now. The big bad wolf had gone. Red Riding Hood and her grandmother thanked the woodcutter. Little Red Riding Hood told her grandmother and the woodcutter that she had learnt a lesson. She would always follow her mother's instructions and never talk to strangers again.
The Dog and the Bone. Once upon a time, a dog was walking with a nice, juicy bone in his mouth. He came across a river. To get to the other side, he had to walk on the bridge over the river. So he walked on the bridge with the bone held firmly in his mouth. While crossing, he saw his reflection in the clear river water. He thought it was another dog with a bigger and juicier bone in his mouth. He became very angry and thought,
Why does he have a bigger bone than me?
he wanted the other dog's bone as well. So he barked at his reflection, and the bone fell from his mouth into the river. He got upset and realized his mistake. He lost what he had due to his greediness. Moral of the story: it is very foolish to be greedy. The Fox and the Crow. Once upon a time, a crow was flying with a piece of cheese in his mouth. A fox saw the crow with the cheese in his mouth. The fox's mouth started watering. He thought, I want to eat that delicious cheese. How do I get it from the crow? The fox stood beneath the tree where the crow was sitting. He started praising the crow. "I have heard that you are a very good singer. I would love to hear your sweet voice. Please, sing for me, dear crow." The crow was very pleased hearing the praise. He opened his mouth to sing. As soon as he opened his mouth, the piece of cheese fell to the ground. The cunning fox quickly grabbed the cheese. He made fun of the crow and said, "Ha! Fooled you! Who wants to hear your voice, silly crow? I just wanted this yummy cheese." The fox walked away, happily eating the cheese, while the crow sat on the tree and cried silently. Moral of the story: do not trust flatterers. The Lion and the Mouse. One day, a lion was dozing off peacefully in the jungle. A mouse came near the lion and started jumping and playing on him. The lion was very angry to be woken up from his slumber. He kept his paw on the mouse's tail to stop him from running away. He caught the mouse and said,
"Oh, you're going to be my meal now. This is your punishment for harassing me."
The mouse begged and said, "Please, please let me go. I promise to help you when you need me." The lion laughed at this, but freed the mouse. One day, the lion got trapped in a net. He was scared. He roared loudly, but no one came to help him. Soon the mouse came to the lion's rescue and started nibbling at the net. The mouse set the lion free from the trap, and they became good friends forever. Moral of the story: no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. The Thirsty Crow. One hot day, a very thirsty crow was flying around looking for water. After flying for a long time, he spotted a pot of water. There was very little water in the pot. He tried to put his beak inside, but couldn't reach the water. He had an idea. He saw many pebbles on the ground. He picked up pebbles one by one and started dropping them in the pot. As more pebbles were dropped in, the water slowly rose towards the mouth of the pot. The crow drank the water and quenched his thirst. After drinking the water, he flew away happily to his home. Moral of the story: where there is a will, there is a way. The Fox and the Grapes. A very thirsty fox was wandering in the jungle looking for water. He spotted a bunch of grapes hanging from a vine curled up on a tree. The fox got really happy. He thought,
"This is just the thing I need to quench my thirst."
He jumped, but he couldn't reach the grapes. The grapes were too high up for him. He tried with all his strength to jump higher and higher, but he couldn't reach them. The fox finally gave up and said,
The grapes are probably sour anyway.
And he walked away. Moral of the story: it's easy to despise what you cannot get. The Ant and the Dove. Once upon a time, a very thirsty ant was drinking water from the river. Suddenly, the ant lost his balance and fell into the river water. "Help! Help! Help!" cried the ant, but no one could hear his cries. A dove, sitting on a tree nearby, saw that the ant was in trouble. She quickly plucked off a leaf from the tree and dropped it into the water. The ant climbed on the leaf. He thanked the dove for saving his life. After a few days, the dove was sitting on a tree. The ant saw a hunter aiming his arrow at the dove. The ant knew that his friend the dove was in danger. He quickly bit the hunter's leg. The hunter cried in pain. The hunter's arrow missed the dove. This time, the ant saved the dove. The dove thanked the ant for saving her life, and they became friends forever. Moral of the story: one good deed deserves another. The Fox and the Stork. One day, a fox invited the stork for lunch. The fox made some soup and served it in 2 shallow bowls. The stork had a long beak and wondered how to drink soup from the bowl. The fox quickly finished his soup. The stork couldn't drink his soup. The stork said to himself,
I must teach this fox a lesson.
After the meal, the stork told the fox,
Thank you for inviting me. Why don't you come to my place for lunch tomorrow? I will make some delicious soup for you.
The next day, the fox happily went to the stork's house. The stork prepared some delicious soup and served it in 2 long-necked jars. Now, the fox wondered how to drink the soup from such a tall jar. The stork quickly finished his soup, but the fox's mouth could not reach the soup. The fox learned his lesson. Moral of the story: tit for tat. Do to others what one would wish for oneself. The Goose That Laid the Golden Eggs.
Once upon a time, there lived a farmer with his wife. They owned a special goose. One day, the goose laid a golden egg. The farmer became very happy and sold the egg. Every day, the goose would lay a golden egg. The farmer and his wife would then sell the egg. They soon became rich. The couple became greedy. They thought that a big piece of gold must be inside the goose. If they could have all of the gold together, they would become richer much faster. They decided to cut the goose and get out all the gold at once. They killed the goose and found that she was like every other goose from the inside. There was no gold inside. They started crying. Now they would not get any more golden eggs. All due to their greed. Moral: too much greed gains nothing.
The fox and the a very he Moral of the story: it's easy to despise what you cannot get.
An emotional guy. Mr. Onion is an emotional fellow. He gets upset and often cries. Poor Mr. Onion sobs all the way through sad movies.
Oh, I love a good tearjerker,
He wails. Mr. Onion even makes the pages of all his books soggy with his tears.
This story is so touching,
He sobs. Mr. Onion loves listening to the kitchen radio too. But as soon as the sad song comes on, he sets himself off.
Wah!
Mr. Onion could really do with some cheer. Some light-hearted fun ought to dry up those tears, says Miss Broccoli. So the vegetable pals take Mr. Onion out for the day. They do everything they possibly can to keep him happy. Suddenly, tears well up in his eyes and he starts crying.
They're tears of joy. I'm just an emotional guy,
He sobs. The Frog Prince. One day, a beautiful princess was playing catch with her golden ball near a pond. By mistake, she dropped the ball. It rolled down the bank and sank into the depths of the pond. My golden ball is lost forever, said the princess. I can find it for you, croaked a frog. The princess hated frogs. She couldn't bear to look at him. But she said anyway, I'll give you pearls and diamonds if you do. I don't want pearls and diamonds. I want to eat from your plate, drink from your cup, and sleep in your bed. Will you promise me that? I promise, she said. The frog dived deep into the pond. He returned with the golden ball. The princess became very happy. She snatched it from the frog and ran away. That evening, the princess and her family were having dinner. There was a gentle knock at the door. A croaky voice called out, Remember your promise, dear princess.
Who is that?
The king asked the princess. A frog who found my lost ball. I promised to share my plate with him,
Do as you promised.
thundered the king. Unwillingly, the princess picked up the frog. The frog ate from her plate and drank from her cup. She took him to her room. The frog hopped onto her bed and slept. The princess was disgusted. The frog ate from her plate and slept in her bed for 3 days. On the 4th evening, she heard a knock on the door. Standing at the door was a handsome prince. Who are you? Stammered the princess. I am a prince. A wicked witch turned me into a frog. Princess, you have been very kind to me. You have freed me from the spell. Will you marry me? The princess was enchanted with the handsome prince.
She agreed immediately. They married and lived together happily ever after. Rapunzel. Once upon a time, a young couple lived near an enchanted garden. But no one ever set foot in the garden because it was owned by a witch. One day, the wife, who was expecting a baby, began to crave spring leaves from the witch's garden. Her husband bravely picked leaves of a plant named Rapunzel. The witch caught him. The husband said,
It's for my pregnant wife.
In return, the witch demanded to take the child. The couple was soon blessed with a little girl. The witch arrived at their door and took the baby away. She decided to name her Rapunzel. Years passed, and Rapunzel turned 13. The witch locked her in a tower with no door. The witch would climb the tower using Rapunzel's long hair. One day, a prince saw Rapunzel sitting at the window. He was instantly enchanted by her. Rapunzel let down her hair, and the prince climbed up. "You must go before the witch finds you," said Rapunzel. The prince promised to help her escape with a rope ladder. When the witch returned, she sensed that a man had been there. In anger, she chopped off Rapunzel's long golden hair and locked her in a cupboard. The prince arrived again and climbed up. But the witch was holding the long hair. She tried to push him away. The prince managed to dodge the witch. She lost her balance and fell on the ground with a thud. The prince found Rapunzel in the cupboard. They climbed down the rope ladder and fled. Soon, they got married and lived happily ever after. Giant Turnip. Once upon a time, there lived an old man with his wife. The old man planted some turnip seeds. He watered them and cared for them. The seeds grew into plants. There were lots of turnips. The old man took good care of them. Out of all those turnips, there was one huge turnip. He had never seen a giant turnip before. Finally, the turnip stopped growing. The old man decided to pull it out of the ground. He pulled and pulled and pulled, but the giant turnip wouldn't budge. The old man called his wife for help. The wife held the old man, and the old man held the turnip top. Together they pulled and pulled and pulled. They called their son for help. Together they pulled and pulled and pulled, but the giant turnip wouldn't budge. They called their dog for help. Together they pulled and pulled and pulled, but the giant turnip still wouldn't budge. At last, They all called the little mouse for help. He crawled his way under the turnip and started nipping the roots with his teeth. While the little mouse nipped the roots, they kept pulling, and suddenly, pop! Out of the ground came the giant turnip. Everyone was pleased. That evening, they all enjoyed a delicious turnip supper, even the little mouse.
Make, subscribe and like.